I'm King Link, and it's September 2022, which means of course it's the Humble Choice September 2022 review. This month I feel like I'm seeing double. I've reviewed half of these games previously on the channel, but like always I give them another shot and tell you which games are worth playing and which games you may want to skip. The good news is there's some hot titles here. The bad news, well, a few of them are a bit niche, even if they are good. I've played each of these titles for an hour to remember what these games were like, figure out the positives, the negatives, and the target audience, and now I'm here to report what I found out and how the bundle is overall. But before we talk about that, let's dive into some games, and start with Crusader Kings 3. This is a true choose-your-own-adventure. Crusader Kings is an interesting franchise. You start as a monarch somewhere, but the game randomizes events and actions, so every game will feel different. You run your country, but you'll be able to work with your court for or against other countries, going to war, joining others, and leading your men to victory, valor, and prizes. There's a lot of complex systems here and a ton to do. Exactly what you expect from Paradox Interactive. But all of that is also a negative. I've talked about games where you spend up to 20 hours just to understand the game, and this is one of them. But if you enjoy this, you'll be playing for hundreds of hours as well. At the same time, this is a very open-ended game without a real victory condition, so your goal is to make your own fun, which is why I actually call it a true choose-your-own-adventure. Pick this up if you want to rule a country and make decisions. You can do everything from marrying your vassals to other families, befriending people, and even trying to murder your wife, though, personal experience, that didn't go so well, and trust me, the only reason I tried was there was an achievement for it. If you want to live as a feudal king, this is the best way to go about it. Rest in peace, Elizabeth II. I will make a quick mention that there is a bit of controversy regarding the pricing of the DLC of this game, of which some has just doubled in price. Doesn't actually hurt the value of the game, but maybe something to consider. Just Cause 4. Let's blow something up. Just Cause tries to tell a story about a dictator that a CIA operative named Rico Rodriguez has come to town to take down. Sure, that's a good enough reason. Just Cause 4 is really about the explosions. Go into an area, kill enemies, blow up a lot of stuff, and take over the world one area at a time. The explosions, though, are so much fun that even replaying this after having beaten it previously, it's just fun to destroy as much of the world as you can. But Just Cause 4 isn't a great shooty bang bang game with tons to blow up. The graphics are hit and miss, the story is hopefully forgettable one day, there's no difficulty options, and the game can get quite challenging at times. But again, even with all that, you have your wingsuit, you have your parachute, and a ton of weapons so you can rain down the fires of hell on enemies, which is always fun. Pick this up if you want to see some stuff explode, because this really delivers on it if the video is any clue. At the same time, I love Just Cause 2 and Just Cause 3, but Just Cause 4 never really scratched that same itch, likely because of the lack of the collectible nature to destroy everything. It's probably in between those two titles though. I gave this game a 3 out of 5 a couple years ago when I reviewed it, however at the price of the choice, it is worth it if you want some extreme action. Also, you get the complete edition here, so even if you already have the reloaded edition, it may be worth it to redeem the key for all the DLC.
Great! Our brilliant contestants win the highest prize on the Wheel of Misfortune, a formidable magic amulet.
The Dungeon of Naheulbeuk, the Amulet of Chaos, D&D humor for good or bad. I really hate the name of this game because I'm sure I'm butchering it, but Dungeon of Unnecessary Long Name is based on a French D&D podcast of a similar name, though obviously in French. A group of 7 adventurers go into a colorful dungeon and work their way through a series of encounters with the goal of loot, and more loot. The combat here is good and the progression of the game will keep players engaged, with one of the party members usually being swapped out for a visiting character. There's English voice acting that sometimes works, though I'm showing one that really didn't. The real problem is the humor and writing here aren't great. If you're a fan of the podcast, I'm sure you're going to enjoy this title, and if you love D&D jokes, you'll probably get a kick out of this. However, I struggle with this. I played this for Game Pass, and replaying it now made me realize the core issue. These are not really new jokes. A custodian named Jan Hitor, a dwarf shouting, "Nothing goes over my head," dwarves and elves fighting, a cowardly thief. Like, someone likes these jokes as this game is popular, but I really found the jokes themselves tired. Pick this up if you like the comedy, though I do recommend you watch someone play this for maybe a half hour and then make a decision. Some people like this, but personally I didn't enjoy playing for 4 hours or playing it again here. On the other hand, if you do like the humor, the tactical gameplay is great and there are 4 different difficulties, so there should be the right challenge for however you want to play this game.
Sir, please. Manners.
Forgive Me Father, spooky scary monsters and the guns to kill 'em. Forgive Me Father is a retro horror FPS with a great graphical style and a lot of interesting enemies. At first it seems like a typical zombie shooter, but after headshotting one of the zombies, they took their head that they were carrying and placed it on them and just kept coming. There are a lot of fresh ideas throughout the game, even something as weak as a foggy area works well here and gets the blood pumping. On the other hand, after seeing 4 different enemies, the game just kept throwing them at me over and over. There's probably a lot more, but it was often similar for the hour I played. The story is just there to have collectibles to find, but this is much more on the combat. There's also not much horror here, though it does have a horror aesthetic. You should have enough ammo to just tear through enemies rather than being afraid of some terror. Pick this up if you like retro FPSs. This is well designed and the music's awesome. Gameplay is fast paced and I had a blast. There's even leveling with skill points which aren't needed but also didn't upset me as much as I expected. However, it's really not that scary to the point where I, a chicken, could easily come back to the game and plunk down even more hours into it. Crown Trick, an almost rogue-like roguelite. Crown Trick is exactly what I like from both rogue-related genres. There's a turn-based aspect, a lot more strategy than action, and a great dungeon with discoveries to be made around every corner. Crown Trick shines with its art style and the combat is great. This is more of a puzzle game than a true hack and slash, as the player is given a serious number of advantages early on, such as the ability to blink away a few squares without even moving, which also allows the player to avoid damage or use interesting strategies. The downside is this is also a roguelite, so expect long, deep dungeon dives. I played my first run on this for almost 40 minutes. I previously played and beat the first dungeon on Game Pass, and I enjoyed myself both times. However, because of the number of abilities the player will have at one time, there can be a bit of analysis paralysis or overanalyzation that will happen when the players are presented with a problem. While it is similar to a roguelike, there are also forms of upgrades and progression outside of the dungeon itself as players unlock more of this game. Pick this up if you like turn-based roguelites on a grid. This is very similar to The Pit and a bit easier and more friendly than Adam, which is a roguelike from last year. But it is a game that I'm super thrilled to add to my library because it's so well made and I want to see more of the dungeons, bosses, and creations in this game. Descenders, roguelite multiplayer Tony Hawk style extreme speed. Yes, all of that. Descenders is amazing. You have a randomized world that allows you to explore different courses, earning a point system called rep, discover different challenges in different courses, and also allow you to see other players but not directly be affected by them. There's a lot to like here, the extreme speed, the ease of stunts. I automatically just pop off a backflip almost every time I jump. I only got through the first of the 4 locations, and then there's also additional challenges beyond that. I need to work on what was known as the boss jump because I kept biffing it over and over. It's the one piece that always showed up. There's a great design at the core of this game, and this instantly hooked me into wanting to explore more and more of this experience. Pick this up if you want an extreme sports games. This could be better if you play in a party, and in multiplayer each person enters the same map, but can go different routes. I don't believe they can interfere with each other as I said, however the experience here is sublime and I'm going to be playing more of it before this weekend. Industria, a walking simulator with puzzles and shooting. During my first half hour of Industria, I assumed this was just a simple walking simulator. While the game has difficulty levels, the game is mostly about exploration, and even in later sections it appears exploration is the goal of the game. As time goes on, there are puzzles and enemies, but nothing that would be too hard, at least not this early. However, this is a 4-hour game, and people do say on harder difficulties the AI in it is still very easy. The story is interesting, but after teleporting to another world, the narrative didn't grab me as much as being in Berlin as the world was being torn down. Pick this up if you want shooting, puzzles, and a lot of walking. I imagine this will appeal to some people, but after an hour, I really wasn't feeling a strong desire to return. I know this was made by a small team, but I feel like the story is a place they could have been enhanced, and I similarly wonder if the shooting was necessary in the game. Shapez, a manufacturing factory simulator but using simple shapes. The gameplay of Shapez may look common to people who have played games such as Factorio and Satisfactory, and that's because it is. You build a sprawling factory that continues to need to pull in more resources to create complex production lines to satisfy the current level's needs, and each time you beat a level, the game leaves your factory and just asks you to create something different or new. There are no enemies and no costs, so players can just build their lines to their heart's content. There's also what feels like almost an infinite amount of area to build out towards. This looks a little simple to play, but the challenge will come from optimizing designs, building larger features, and trying to create exactly what's being requested. The game tells you this isn't an idle game, and that's true. No matter what you're working on, you can improve and increase the flow of items. There are also new pieces of machinery to unlock and upgrades that you can gain that will increase the efficiency of different pieces. Pick this up if you like Factorio or Satisfactory. This is a very similar game but without the combat. It also feels unique. If you haven't tried those games yet, you should, but this is also in that same area as the Actronics titles, where the goal is more puzzling out efficient ways to do tasks, which means this game is perfect for me. I first played this when the developer released an early version of the game on our incremental games, and I loved it. In addition, you get the puzzle DLC for Shapez, and that's user-created puzzles usually focusing on how to create certain designs in extremely limited space. Those are more thought puzzles than efficiency related, but they are great additions to this title as well. And that's the 8 games for this month, but wait. We also get a bonus game. Not from Humble Game Collection, but this time it's actually from the Humble Choice itself. It's a DRM free title, which is this. Sidin Hyphy Edition, our first bonus game in about 6 months. So even though this is a bonus game, Humble, as always, didn't put out a lot of information about this, I'll try to do my best. This is the second game that Humble commissioned from Gameheads, the studio behind The Grounds, a rather terrible dodgeball game from Humble Choice October 2021's offering. This title has been given a lot longer to bake as it was originally announced along with the deal in 2020, and the extra time shows. It's a rhythm game where players have to do dance moves and hit the button in time with the music, at least when it plays. There are only a handful of dance moves in the game, and players will have to tap them out to ensure that they can properly wow the crowd over their opponents. The animations are good, the music is acceptable, and there's a good idea here. But this is a simplistic concept, one that would have likely been on Newgrounds or Congregate only a couple years ago. The game becomes extremely challenging after 4 rounds, but there really wasn't a big incentive to keep playing, and the gameplay systems didn't mesh well as I would have hoped to make it worth playing over and over. Check this out if you picked up the bundle. These young game devs definitely deserve a chance, and this is a far better game than the previous title. However, it's probably better that this is a DRM-free bonus game instead of one of the main titles. But to the developers, I say keep up the good work. This may not have knocked it out of the park, but there is a solid concept here and a lot of talent shown on this title. And I'll be calling that my bonus game for the month. I don't know if any additional games were added to the Humble Game Collection, however Moonscars, a new Humble Game published title, will be released on the Humble Game Collection on day 1 around the end of the month. And if you're interested in that one, buy the choice and you get to play it for free as long as you have a Humble Choice subscription. I'll likely cover it for next month's collection one way or another. As for this bundle overall, I came into a bit conflicted. Crusader Kings 3, Dungeon of and Just Cause 4 are not high on my list of favorite games, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it's not as big a problem here. You see, I wouldn't want to pay $60 for Just Cause 4, Crusader Kings 3, or that dungeon game, but I'm not here. Humble Choice goes for $12, and for that price most of the games this month are rather good. I really wasn't even sure if I'd like Forgive Me Father, but ended up having a good time even with a horror game, so there's actually a lot to like here. I'd probably be pretty happy if this is how Humble looked from now on. Games that you might not pay full price for but will gladly pick up for a couple bucks, and this lineup delivers. As I played the games, I actually considered how to rank them, and I realized there's an important part of the equation. Ultimately, how the games stack up for value. Getting Crusader Kings that can go for $50 for 12 bucks is a better deal than getting Crown Trick, which goes for 20 bucks and actually currently is in a bundle on Fanatical for 5. So with that being said, let's see what these titles are, and this month we're going with the fast food choices. Your combo meal, just the sandwich, and bag fries. I hope I don't need to explain what those are, do I? Starting from the bottom, we'll check the bottom of the bag and we find Industria. Industria isn't a bad game, but it's also not a great title either. If it's a small game made by a small team, and it's probably the only game I wouldn't return to this month, that's why it's down here. Though I will say it's great that there's only one game in the bottom category this month. Moving to our Just the Sandwich category, the fish fillet is representing the Dungeon of Naheulbeuk at the bottom of this category. The reason it's here is that people will like the comedy, and if that's the case, this one can easily move to the top of this category, maybe even to the combo meal, but I'm not a fan of this one even if it is the most personal opinion I've ever had on a game. Next up is our stand-in for the classic beef and cheddar sandwich from Arby's, and that's in the form of Forgive Me Father. This is a fast-paced shooter, and it looks great while doing it. The gameplay was fun, and I'm curious where else the story will take the player. Granted, it is doing the arenas of monsters, but the enemies here feel fair and interesting. Also, check out that enemy replacing their head. Very cool. Now we have the one, the only, the double from In-N-Out, and for this we have Shapez. Listen, this is my list. I'm going to be placing Shapez right here. It's a fun game, and I definitely will be back to play more and seeing how far I can go in this factory maker. I love this genre, whatever it's called, and I'm glad to see this title on the choice. Give it a shot. You'll probably enjoy it. This brings us to the Spicy Deluxe at Chick-fil-A, and for this title we have Descenders, the high-speed game that gets my adrenaline going, and tricking off ramps never stops being fun. There's a good challenge as well, tons to do, and similar to Shapez, I'm looking forward to playing more. And at the top of just a sandwich, can we even call it that? It's the Double Animal style, and that is paired with Crown Trick. This is a good, lengthy roguelite with a great graphical style, excellent combat, and an interesting game. I've actually already put in several hours on Game Pass, and I'm thrilled that I now own it myself. And that's just the sandwich. That's 6 titles so far with only 2 to go. Not a bad list at all, but we may have seen better. So let's talk about that final category, and here we're talking about the combo meals. We're starting at the bottom with Wendy's 4 for $4 with a Frosty, which is represented by Crusader Kings 3. And if you like this game, it'll last you for a couple years. If you don't, you still may put in a decent amount of time to figure that out. The open-ended nature is the make or break feature, but there are a lot of people who go crazy for this one. And the best of the best is Taco Bell's 3 Soft Taco Supreme with a Baja Blast, or Just Cause 4. They'll both be equally explosive. As I said, I gave this a 3 out of 5, but for $12, I'd find something fun to do in this for many hours. I played it for 25 hours so far and haven't finished everything yet. Even replaying this for this video has made me consider returning, which I'm surprised at. I might if I didn't delete my save to get the footage of the first couple missions for this one. Oops. So this is how the final list looks, and that's my tier list. So let me know what you think in the comments. Which did I miss? Where would you have put the McRib? And is it just me, or is Raising Cane's just not that good? But that's what I have for all of you, and remember, if you like this, consider subscribing. This month I actually already covered 4 of these titles on my channel, 3 of them from my Game Pass videos, so if you want to try to guess at what's coming soon, check out my Game Pass videos, and if you just want to be able to see the next Humble Choice video first, turning on notifications is the best way to find out. I'll pop up my Just Cause 4 review and some other videos for you to check out. See you next time.